So I go on and on all the time about what is yes and standing in your yes and being yes and saying yes. And essentially what I'm talking about is embracing all the internal movements that are you. I'm talking about self-awareness and a profound embodiment of self-acceptance. Because without that, we have a great resistance to ourselves. And that resistance is the primary barrier to accessing your light, to accessing the truth of yourself, to being able to fulfill and embody your authentic self. And that is your freedom. That's where your fulfillment lies, is in the embodiment of your authenticity. So how do we do that after years and years, hundreds of years of self-repression and a conditioning, a cultural, communal conditioning of profound resistance to ourselves? So how do we break down that barrier? How do we begin to access our authenticity? And what I'm talking about is, what is the pathway to embody the truth? What is our pathway of full embodiment? So to begin with, the first and primary place is awareness, which is basically a willingness to listen to the truth of your heart, willingness to listen to the way you unfold, the full embodiment of yourself in every moment. So I'm not talking about a selective listening where only the positive aspects are embraced. I'm talking about the full embodiment and full access of your whole being and everything about you right now, fully received, fully heard. So I'm talking about a very inclusive awareness, an awareness that includes the full amount of you. And secondly, I'm talking about healing, because primarily you're going to run up against those wounds as soon as you begin to fully receive yourself. Because those wounds are sitting right there, and that feeling of guilt, that feeling of shame, that feeling of rage, of fear, all of those emotions that are emanating from your wounded self. So I'm not trying to say that those emotions represent wounds, because those emotions can exist outside of woundedness. What I'm referring to is bringing awareness to your wounded self, and those tend to be how you feel you're in a wound. And there's a way that this same awareness, bringing it to your wounded self, can transform, can heal. This is where transformation can actually happen, where true healing can happen, is through your awareness. And through the blog and through the Facebook and certainly in the group chats and the private sessions, we go into great depth about what that healing is and how to heal and what's there to heal. But that's a primary step in the embodiment, is the healing. Thirdly, I'm talking about communication, learning how to speak from your heart. This is not something we were born with. Most of us picked up and learned our language skills from a compromised position. It was compromised patterning that has created our communication skills. And we know this because so many of us struggle around the world and defining boundaries with ourselves and with others. Just what are the rules of engagement with no? And so many of us struggle to find any words at all when we're up against dense emotional places. What is the language there? Very often words leave us. And any realm in between, communication cannot be underestimated. It's profoundly valuable. Speaking, putting word to the truth in your heart, the embodiment of yourself, is relying on that. And so communication is an essential piece of it. And then finally, I'm talking about standing in your truth. I'm talking about representing the action that embodies your right action in any particular moment. What is your right pathway in standing in it? Basically, I'm referring to integrity, embodying the integrity of your authenticity. And again, this is the pathway. And I think there's this story that suddenly, in a flash or bolt of lightning, the veils will drop and bliss will permeate everything, and suddenly all your wounds will heal. All the words you need to speak your truth will be present and available, and action will make itself obvious, and there'll be no other way to stand. And this is a myth. This is not the case. One can certainly, in a moment, dissolve any sense of self and align with the truth of our being and the deep silence that is beyond the form. Absolutely. But it doesn't exclude this pathway. This pathway will still be walked in order to embody the truth that you then have realized. And you can have a glimpse, and still this pathway is walked. And you don't need to have a sudden awakening or a glimpse to walk this pathway. You can simply begin. Begin to embody the authenticity of yourself, and the veils will drop. Your true self will be revealed, because this is where your freedom lives, in the full embodiment of yourself, in coming to live, which means hearing, speaking, standing in your authenticity. It means healing the blockages and the armoring that's preventing your light from shining through. So that's the pathway. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about authentic embodiment of authenticity. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm referring to your freedom. Where your freedom is, where your fulfillment is in the embodiment of your authenticity. Your light is here. It's right here in your heart. And there is great barriers through your resistance to yourself and the wounds and the armoring. But this is the pathway. You can begin it before awakening, as you are awakening, and after awakening. Nobody is exempt from this pathway. So that's how you do it.